Our most almighty and loving God, what a glorious morning you have blessed us with, and this opportunity to come together in your name to honor these your children for their service, for the love of you and for country. So be with us. May your Holy Spirit surround us in this place and lift us up in fellowship, in honor, in laughter, and in love. And God, may we remember that everything that we do is to glorify you and glorify you only. So be with us. Join us. Hold your arms around those that will be receiving these blankets. And be with all of us as we leave this place later to go and serve you, which is what you call us to do. In your Son's name we do pray it. Amen. Honor guard, post the colors.
Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you for that wonderful opening and for the posting of the colors. I'm Marlene Meisel, the group leader with Missouri River Quilts of Valor. Well, we're here today, this morning, to honor and award 8 veterans with Quilts of Valor. And this afternoon, we will be doing an additional 8 veterans. And with me, we have some members, and I'm going to announce them, so if you want to stand and wave. We have Gail Nicholson from Moffett. She's our photographer today. Deb Wilson is from Garrison, and they're behind there. Okay, and then we also have Deb, where's she at? Deb Feist from Bismarck, and then we have Gloria Payne from Elgin. She's here to help us also. They're all members. It's really great to see such a large group and community support to honor these veterans and our service members that we have. This is our first trip to Hettinger to hold awards, and we're glad to be here. Some may be wondering why we have 2 groups and we didn't combine them. There's a number of reasons for it. Is if after you get to a certain number of awards, it gets to be it can be a long program. And we'd like to give the attention to the veterans and the service members, as that's the least that we could do, because they earned it and deserve it, and we like to keep it personable. Also, if we have an award ceremony that is 20 in the numbers of 20 or more at one ceremony, we have to get special permission from the foundation to hold those ceremonies, and that can take months to get approval. So we keep them smaller. Now, we just recited the Pledge of Allegiance, but how many of you really know the meaning of the pledge? I think most of you recall who Red Skelton is. I know at least the older generation does. He was an entertainer and a comedian. He's also a veteran. During World War II, Red Skelton served in the United States Army and performed numerous comedy shows for the troops. In 1951, he had a television show called The Red Skelton Show, which aired for 20 years. One of his acts, you probably remember, is Clem Diddlehopper, but he had a serious side to him. On January 14th, 1969, he did a segment in which he explained the meaning of the Pledge of Allegiance, and it can be found on YouTube, and if you have the opportunity, Google it, because it's worth seeing. And Deb Wilson, she's going to read the transcript from that show. Now, there's parts in there you're going to catch that things have changed, but it's going to give you a meaning of the pledge.
The Pledge of Allegiance. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate, all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity. Allegiance, my love and my devotion. To the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts freedom in everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States. Individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose. All divided with the imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose. And that's love for country. And to the Republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people. And it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people. For which it stands, one nation. One nation meaning so blessed by God. Indivisible. Incapable of being divided. With liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation. And justice, the principle of quality of dealing fairly with others. For all. For all, which means boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. Thank you very much. I did something
He also goes on to say at the end of his draft, he says, since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to the country, and the 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance. And we do know what those 2 states are. A little history here. Hawaii and Alaska. And they were added, let's see here, in lost my notes. About 64 years ago. Okay, yeah, Alaska was January 1959, and Hawaii was August of 59. That's only 64 years ago. So some of you may remember when they were joined to the nation. The other 2 words that were added, under God. And that Congress added under God to the pledge in 1954 during the Cold War. Many members of Congress reportedly wanted to emphasize the distinctions between the United States and the officially atheist Soviet Union. So that's where how that all happened. And now another thing I should point out, we know how punctuation can make a difference in the meaning of a sentence. We were at an award a few months ago, and a veteran pointed out, he says, you know, how when we cite the Pledge of Allegiance, you have this rhythm and how you stop and you pause and so forth. But when we tend to use, after the words one nation, under God, if you look at the Pledge of Allegiance, there is no comma after nation. So next time when you say it, it's one nation under God. You let it flow. It does make a difference in the meaning of the Pledge of Allegiance. A little bit more history and trivia is we have some significant veterans, or military days. We just celebrated Independence Day, which is July 4th. It's not the 4th of July, it's Independence Day. July 27th coming up is Korean War Veterans Armistice Day. And the 28th is National Buffalo Soldiers Day. In August, there's some significant ones. August 4th is the Coast Guard's birthday, 1790. They will be 233 years old. One that most do not want to earn this award, but it's August 7th is Purple Heart Day. And August 10th is Agent Orange Awareness Day. And that is very significant to the Vietnam veterans because so many of them have been affected by Agent Orange. August 14th is Navajo Code Day and Talkers Day. And I think that was used quite often. I think it was World War II. They did some communicating. And August 29th is Marine Forces Reserve's birthday. They're 107 years old. On a lighter note, anybody familiar with National Calendar? Every day is a day that you celebrate something, but that office is right out of Mandan, and I get an email from the calendar every day, and today, some of the things celebrated today is National I Love Horses Day, so I think there's a lot of people here with horses. It's also Tapioca Pudding Day. It's National Give Something Away Day, and also Toss Away the Could-Haves and the Should-Haves Day. But those are just some of the things for today, just in case you wanted to know. The history on the Quilts of Valor. The mission of the Quilts of Valor is to provide comforting and healing quilts to veterans and service members who have been touched by war, and it's also to say thank you for your service. Our group, we're under the national organization, the Quilts of Valor Foundation. The Quilts of Valor Foundation is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. It was founded in 2003 by Catherine Roberts from Delaware, and it was while her son was serving in Iraq. Like most mothers, family members, and so forth, she was in constant worry and fear for him. And one night, she said it was like a vision, it was like a dream. She saw this soldier sitting on the edge of the bed with the war demon surrounding him, fear and so forth. She then had the next dream was this same soldier was sitting there. He had a quilt wrapped around him, and his whole demeanor had changed to one of comfort and well-being. And that quilt did that, and that's how this came about, and that's why the message is a quilt equals or means comfort and healing. The first award was for Quilt of Valor was November of that year, 2003, to a soldier from Minnesota who had lost his leg while serving in Iraq. And what started in her home as a grassroots operation now has groups in all 50 states. There's over 10,000 members and over 600 such as ours. And since the end of June 30th of this year, there have been over 351,835 quilts awarded. And that's including COVID, when some groups were not awarding quilts. Ours did during that time. Now, our group is fairly new. We just celebrated, we organized in February of 2020, so we're 3 years old. We started in the AMVETS in Bismarck. They provided a place for us. And we had one meeting. That's when COVID, you guys remember that's when COVID struck. We pulled everything out of there, the supplies we had and so forth were stored in my house. We did not meet again until May, and at that time Sewing Machines Plus offered a space, and it's much more convenient. It's also a quilting store. We meet once a month in the lower level, and it's the second Thursday of every month. And then our awards, our first awards were in June of 2020 to 4 Iraqi veterans, and it was awarded right in Dickinson. And that same evening, we did had a Vietnam War veteran in Bismarck. So we had 5 on the same day in June. And as for our group, since we organized, and after today, the awards are going to be added to the numbers, the national numbers, because each veteran and service member has a Quilt of Valor, a number designated just for them, and they will be reported. But our group, after today, will hit another milestone. We will have awarded approximately, with the afternoon session, 403 quilts. We are the busiest group in North Dakota, and we're very proud of it, and that's because of all of you that nominate these veterans and service members. And as for our group and what we do, is all the aspects, the quilt construction, the paperwork, the traveling, the long arming, it's all done by volunteers. And some of the fabric and supplies are donated to us, a minimal amount, but most of our supplies are purchased from monetary donations from individuals, organizations, and so forth. Now, the average cost of one quilt is about $400. There is no cost to the veteran or service member who's being awarded that quilt. This is a gift, and it's an award. Or I should say it's not a gift, it's an award. And as I said earlier, it's to bring comfort and healing and to say thank you for your service. And we've received many thank yous and stories on how this quilt has helped them, and that's what the mission of the Quilts of Valor is. Now, if I can have 2 of our members bring a quilt forward, I'm going to explain what a quilt consists of and what it means. Some quilts are directional, so you have to make sure they're facing the right direction. Yeah, it's directional. It's little things. Okay, a quilt consists of 3 layers. We think of it as the top layer with its many different colors, shapes, and fabrics, depending on how it was made, represents all of the people in our community and the many different individuals that we are. The second layer is the batting or the filler. It's between the 2 layers that you're not going to see. It's the warmth. It represents our hope that the quilt will bring warmth, comfort, peace, and healing to the veteran or service member who receives it. And the third layer is the backing. It's the strength that holds it all together. It represents the strength of the one receiving it, the support they provided to us, and the support of his or her family, our communities, and our nation. And also, each stitch that holds that layer together represents the love, gratitude, and sometimes tears of the maker. Now, each quilt has a label on it, and the label is on the back. And on that label, it's going to list who made the quilt. It's going to list who pieced it, who did the long arming, and who did the binding. Some of those quilts are made solely by one individual. Some can be made by 2, 3, even 4. In addition, it's going to list the veteran or service member's name, who is awarded that quilt, and the date of the award. And we put that name on when we see you, because that information has to be correct. And then also, the quilt has a 3-part message. It's 1, we honor you for your service. 2, our quilters and members know that freedom is not free. This quilt is meant to say thank you for your sacrifice. And finally, it's meant to comfort you and to remind you that although your family and friends were not and cannot be with you at all times, you are forever in our thoughts and in our hearts. Now, in addition, those being awarded a quilt are going to get a thank you card. The thank you cards are also handmade by volunteers. And inside the thank you card, it's going to contain the mission, or the words that I just read to you, what the 3-part message is, what the quilt means, and so forth, because we know you're not going to remember all of that. And also, it's going to have care instructions on how to care for the quilt. All of these quilts have been washed with unscented detergent and with color catchers. The color catchers take the bleeding, if there's bleeding of the colors from the quilt. So those instructions are in there. We encourage you, use that quilt. That quilt with proper care is going to last you for many, many years. And we've had things, oh, it's too pretty to use. I know that quilt is meant for a purpose. Use it. And if nothing else, at least display it. Also, in the card, you're going to get a star from a retired flag. Now, I know some are thinking, oh my gosh, they defaced the flag, but we got permission, we did check it out. So when these stars are cut and serged around, all of the fabric and fibers are collected in a bag, and they're retired, they're given with other flags to be retired with flags. But with that card, there's a card that states, it says, I am part of an American flag that has flown over a home in the USA. I can no longer fly. The suns and winds have caused me to be tattered and torn. Please carry me as a reminder that you are not forgotten. Now, if you get a star that is yellow, dingy, or dirty looking, you know that flag has been flown a long time. And if you get a star that's bright and white, likely where that one is from, now we get these flags from the Stark County Veterans Memorial in Dickinson, and they tell us that they will get flags sometimes back that are still folded from a military rights funeral, they're folded and presented to the family. Some families have no one to pass it down to, and they get these bags, sometimes aren't even unfolded. They will take those flags, and they will open them, and they will fly them for a few days. So we know those flags have been flown. So if you get one that's bright and white, that's very likely where that flag came from. Okay. And what some have been doing, they've been taking their star, some will carry it, but what most have been doing is they've been taking the star and having it sewn on their quilt. You can sew it on the front where you can see it. Others put it on the label by their name. So that's just some ideas of what to do with the star. The awarding. Part of the award is the wrapping of the quilt over your shoulders. I'm going to, and after it's wrapped, those doing the wrapping can give a hug, a handshake, a high five, or whatever you wish. But I'm going to call forward the veteran or service member. We have a little blue mark, a piece of tape on the floor. We'll have the veteran stand there in front of the banner. Those that are doing the wrapping, you will come forward also, and I think we're going to have you stand on that side. You're going to hold the quilt open so that everybody in the crowd can see it. And if there's more than 2 of you, we want to be sure that you're standing behind the quilt. Pull it down far enough that we can see you. You don't want to cover yourself. We want you part of the picture. If there's probably 4 or 5, stand to the side because we want you all in the picture. I'm going to read their history. After the history, I will ask them if they would like to say a few words, most do, and then I will thank them for their service. That is when those of you that are wrapping will bring the quilt. You're going to flip it. I think we did a demo for some of you. You're going to flip it, and our members will help you. So that the back now is facing the crowd, and you're going to put the quilt, wrap it over the shoulders of the veteran, okay? And then you stay beside the veteran. Gail is going to take a picture with you, those that are doing the wrapping. We like to get 3 pictures. 1 with the quilt open while you're holding it. 1 with those of you that are doing the wrapping with your veteran or service member. And then, as she's going to nod or something, those that are wrapping will have you step to the side or take a seat. And then we want one with just the veteran and his quilt. After that, our members will come up, we'll have the veteran take a chair, and they'll take the quilt from you, fold it, and they'll give you the quilt and so forth, and you'll get your thank you card. Pretty much simple procedure. We'll have you stay seated in those chairs until the end of the program, then we're going to take a group picture also, okay? I should also point out that if you are okay, and I think most of you are, if I have your email address, after I get all the pictures and so forth, it may be a few days, I will email you pictures of the event, of your wrapping and so forth, and so forth. If you do not have email, but you have a family member or a friend that does, if you want to see one of us, we'll get your email address and then list the name of the veteran. We can email the pictures to that individual, okay? Also, we only do that and include you in pictures if you have given us permission. If you allow us to do that, we put it on our Facebook and our website. We only list your first name and the initial of your last name. We don't put full names in there. So we must have you sign the photo release. So if any of you that are in that picture are okay with those being posted, we must have your signature on the photo release. So if you have it, we'll make sure that you see one of us after the program. If there's anyone in the picture that's a minor child, we must have a parent or guardian sign for them. Otherwise, we can't post those pictures. Now, we're going to get started, but before we do, I want to mention that there was a nomination, another one here, Brad Guthrie from Henninger was nominated. He was unable to attend today, and I understand, I think he's the current commander of the American Legion here in Henninger. He did help do something. Is Brad here? Oh, I was that. Okay, oh my gosh, I didn't bring his quilt. Yeah, because I think, if I understand, he's a beekeeper, something with bees, and he's got a show or something in Fargo today. He has agreed, we're doing awards in Dickinson in the end of September. He is going to be coming to Dickinson to be awarded in Dickinson, okay? Also, your program, we try to add to those, some of it, there's a handwriting in there. Just a day or so ago, there's been one added. It's Dennis Bertson from Henninger, so he will be added to the program, and that's this morning. And then also I want to mention one that was nominated, and unfortunately it is, I know his son, I think is your name, it's Warren, is it Van Wyck? Is that how that's pronounced? He was a resident of the care center here in Henninger, and I think it was just a few days ago, not long ago, he passed away. Unfortunately, the requirements for the Quilts of Valor, you must be living. We would love to have awarded one to his family, but we're unable to do that. But we did want to acknowledge him. He was a member, he served from 1950 to 1953 in the United States Army during the Korean conflict. So our condolences to the family. And like I said, we would love to have awarded one, but criteria or protocol does not allow us to. But I think his son is here. So we are going to get started. Our first award, if I could have Sheldon A. Christensen. He was nominated by Art Warner. And now Art Warner is with the American Legion in Dickinson. And I don't know if Art's, oh, there he is. As I said, Art should be the secretary. You guys should hire him. He does Lennon, South Dakota. He does Henninger. He's done Dickinson. But they reach out to him, he contacts, they give them a list, he contacts these veterans and so forth, gets the information, because these have to be done online, and he does everything online. So thank you, Art, but you guys need to hire him. But Sheldon was nominated by Art for the Hettinger American Legion. He is being wrapped, Sheldon is being wrapped by his wife, Kim. Okay, now see if I get this pronounced right, but your name is actually Shoshay, also known as Kim. And also their daughter, now is it Channing? Chanine, and grandson, Noah. Okay? And you also have attendance is your son-in-law James and your grandson Christopher. You want them acknowledged? They're here? Okay. Now Sheldon made the military his career. He served 22 years, 3 months, and 11 days in the United States Air Force during the Vietnam conflict. He served from September of 1986 to May of 1989. He did tours in Taiwan, Okinawa, along with various bases in the United States, including the Air Force Base in Minot, North Dakota. His AFC, or Air Force Specialty Code, was 75171. He was a training systems technician, food services supervisor, and aircraft loadmaster technician. His highest rank was Master Sergeant E7. Awards that he has received, with Air Force awards, is the Commendation Medal, Achievement Medal, Outstanding Unit Award with 2 oak leaf clusters. Now, for those that aren't aware, if I understand this correctly, rather than getting outstanding 2 or 3 of these medals, they add bars or oak leaf clusters. So actually it's like 3 of those awards, but they add the oak leaf clusters to it. He received a Good Conduct Medal with the Silver Service Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, Vietnam Campaign Medal, Overseas Service Short Tour Ribbon, Overseas Long Tour Ribbon, Longevity Service Award Ribbon, Non-Commissioned Officers Professional Military Education Graduate Ribbon, and a Small Arms Expert Marksmanship Ribbon. He's a member of the American Legion, and a memory he shared was while dropping leaflets over Vietnam from the back of a C-130 transport plane, one of the crew members lost his balance while pushing the bundles and fell out of the plane. Fortunately, he was attached to a lifeline. Sheldon assisted in pulling the soldier back into the plane with only a broken arm. So, Sheldon, before we proceed, is there anything that you would like to share or tell?
Well, if you're wondering about where I was stationed, I wasn't actually stationed in Vietnam, but when I was in Taiwan, we flew into Nam every month. So when I got back to my next base at Little Rock Air Force Base, they said, "You did enough time, you're getting the ribbon."
Mr. Christensen, on behalf of the United States, the Missouri River Quilts of Valor, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Now, if any of you would like to take pictures while we're doing this, you certainly can. And at the end of the program, we're going to keep the banner and everything up so you can take more pictures. Okay. Go ahead, Sheldon. Do you want to keep it? Oh, you want a picture of just the bench? Okay, our next award, we can have you come forward, is Bruce Byron Seekers from Hettinger. He again was nominated by Art on behalf of the American Legion for Hettinger. And assisting in his wrapping is his wife Nancy, and it will be one of our members who will help with the wrapping. is a United States Navy veteran. He served 7 years from 1970 to 1977 during the Vietnam War. His primary duty location was on a submarine duty in the Pacific on the SSN G-12 Guard Fish and SSN 94 Permit. They were fast attack submarines. He did 3 of these tours. The SS submarines are nuclear powered and their general purpose was an attack submarine. His missions were classified and therefore he's unable to talk about them. His highest rank was E6 Petty Officer, First Class, and MM1 Machinist Mate. His awards he's received is a National Defense Service Medal, the Navy Expeditionary Medal, and a Good Conduct Medal. He's a member of the American Legion also. A memory that Bruce shared is, Bruce feels everyone should serve in the military, including women, as it teaches life values, doing things whether you like them or not, and accepting responsibility. Bruce, is there anything that you would like to share before we proceed?
I just want to thank everybody for this. When a lot of us came back from Vietnam, we weren't thanked, and I really appreciate this. Thank you. That is one thing to do here often. Mr. Seacrest, on behalf of the United States and the Quilts of Valor Foundation, thank you for your service. Okay, our next award is to Ardmore William Thompson from Hettinger. He was nominated by Arlen Bartels from Lemon, South Dakota. He is being wrapped by his friends Chris and Joan Upton. If you could all come forward, please. William started his military career in the National Guard for 2 years from 1958 to 1960, and then active duty in the United States Army until 1963 during the Vietnam War era. He was assigned to Company E2 Division of Battalion 7th Infantry USA and served in Aschaffenburg, Germany. His assignment was an infantry unit where he worked as a small arms repairman and also assistant supply clerk. His highest rank was Spec 4. A memory he shared is William's best memory of his military career was meeting his future wife in Austria and then married in Graz, Austria on June 25th, 1963. They visit Austria often. Doing the math, they just celebrated your 60th wedding anniversary? Is that correct? Congratulations. He's a member of the American Legion and the DAV, the Disabled American Veterans. Ardmore, is there anything that you would like to share before we proceed? Okay, you're welcome. Mr. Thompson, on behalf of the United States and the Quilts of Valor Foundation, thank you for your service. know, it's not often at these awards, but I think in this morning's award, I think we have almost every branch of the military except the Coast Guard represented here today. That's not very often. Does everybody know what the new branch of the military that started up just a few years ago? What it is? Space Forces. Right. Okay, our next award is Reggie D. Robertson from Hettinger. He too was nominated by Art on behalf of the Hettinger American Legion. He is being wrapped by his wife Nancy and son David. If you could all come forward. Okay, Reggie's a United States Marine Corps veteran. He served from 1968 to 1977 with 1 year in Vietnam, from December of '69 to December of 1970. His primary duty locations were Vietnam, Japan, and the Marine Corps Air Station in Cherry Point, North Carolina, and Yuma, Arizona. His primary duty was 6531 Aviation Ordnance, and his secondary was 8061 Ground Nuclear Weapons Tech. Reggie was attached to an A-6 aircraft squadron as an aviation ordnance supervisor. He served as a nuclear weapons technician, specialized group of 100 members in his field. His highest rank was E6 Staff Sergeant. A memory he shared was his 3.5 years as a nuclear weapons tech has a memory of going to the Military Museum in San Diego and seeing a display of a training model of the nuclear weapon he was trained on with no wording, as it was classified as top secret. He asked the guard if he was aware of the classification and was surprised to learn they had no idea what they had on display because of the secret clearance. Reggie is proud that his 2 sons served in the United States Marine Corps also. Awards that he's received is the Vietnam Service Medal, the Vietnam Campaign Medal, National Defense Service Medal, Presidential Unit Citation Award, and Qualified Expert in both rifle and pistol, and also the Good Conduct Medal. He's a member of the VFW and the American Legion. Reggie, is there anything that you would like to say before we proceed?
Thank you very much.
You are very welcome. Mr. Robertson, on behalf of the United States and the Missouri River Quilts of Valor, thank you for your service. Our next award is Delwyn Olson from Hettinger. He was nominated by Ken Brockle of Hettinger. And his wrapping will be by his wife Cindy and also Kent, and his daughter Stacy Reynolds and son-in-law Odell Reynolds. If you could all come forward. Okay, just got some information. Okay. Before we get started, I'm going to mention Stacy is or was a captain in the Air Force? Was a captain in the Air Force. And this is the first time ever Odell is with the Space Force. What is your rank? Are you still with the Space Force?
Retired Air Force on the civilian space.
Okay, first time we've had that. Congrats, thank you. Thank you for your service. Okay, Delwayne is a United States Army veteran. He served 2 years from January 1964 to February 1966. He was deployed to Vietnam and served there from September of 65 to February of 66. His primary duty station was Lai Key in Vietnam. His primary duty was mechanic. His rank was private first class, E3. His memory was getting out. He's a member of the American Legion, the DAV, and the 40 and 8. Now, does everybody know out there what the 40 and 8 is? I'm going to explain it. A lot don't. For those that aren't familiar, it's an independent, invitation-only honor society of the American veterans and service members. They are committed to charitable and patriotic arms. The title and symbols of the 40 and 8 were derived from the experiences of U.S. troops during World War I. The American soldiers were transported to the front line in the French rail system in small boxcars. These boxcars were narrow and carried either 40 men or 8 horses, and it was cramped. And that's how the 40 and 8 came about. So many years ago, France donated one of these boxcars to every state. Now, does anybody know where North Dakota's is at? Have you ever seen it? It's on the Capitol grounds. It's like by the State Library, the Heritage Center sort of in the middle there. So when you get to the State Capitol grounds, when you take a look at that little boxcar, imagine 40 men in that boxcar. Is there anything, Mr. Olson, that you would like to say before we proceed?
First of all, I want to thank you all for this honor. I had a young doctor come here this evening, or this afternoon, I should say, morning. I'm a joke. In any event, one of my biggest memories of Vietnam was going home, and when we landed in Tonsanute, there was a third truck following us down the runway. And that's all I want to say about that.
Mr. Olson, on behalf of the United States and this great nation, and Missouri River Quilts of Valor, thank you for your service. Okay, our next award is the one that was added. So some of your programs, we tried writing it in if we had on the trip down here. Some may not have it. But it is Dennis Benson from Hettinger. He was nominated by Holly Wyman of Hettinger. Assisting in his wrapping is his wife Jan, and daughter Sherry Euchre and Sue Benson, and grandson Eric Honeyman. If you could all come forward. Okay, Dennis served 6 years in the United States Army during the Vietnam era and the Cold War during the Berlin crisis. He was drafted in December of 1958 to active duty. He served 2 years and entered the reserves. In 1961, he was called to active duty, and he spent time in Germany as a tank driver and served with the 4th Armored Division in Ulm, Germany and Heidelberg, Germany. He did his basic training in Texas at AIT in Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. His primary duty was a parts specialist. He was part of a maintenance support group unit where he did the paperwork and completed on generators, jeeps, and 5-ton trucks and so forth. His rank was specialist E4. He award he's received, he says, I think I got the sharpshooter, because he says during drills, he was 3rd out of 1,500 men during their drills. So I think, yeah, he got the sharpshooter award. Now he said Dennis and Jan, during his second tour, got married in August of '61. 1 month later, he was called to active duty. In November of 1961, Dennis's mother-in-law and his wife Jan made the trip to Nebraska where they met Dennis, and from there, Jan joined Dennis in Arkansas to be with him. Now, he's got a couple stories. He can tell them better. I was trying to take notes because during this short, I'm going to take it over the phone. I didn't have anything in writing, but he's got a couple stories that he wants to share. And one of them has to do with a tank driver in which they had a new lieutenant and they didn't get credit for something, and there's something about Olson. So that one, yeah.
I just want to say, giving me the speaker was the dumbest thing you ever did. But I look at all these faces. I know many of them. They're friends. They're not that close, though. They don't give me Christmas presents. So there might be a trouble. But there's one person that stands out. That's Dr. Seiler. Doc, I want you to know you give some of the best finger waves. And I'll go into this Olson. We went to the basic training. We all had basic training. And you march. And you march, and you march, and you march. And then that's the first week. The second week, you march again. And we had this Olson north of, very far north of the Minnesota, right up against the Canadian border. Him and his dad cut trees down and made poles because they were just little ones. And so that was his living. He couldn't march. He just walked. There was no rhythm. There was nothing. And this lieutenant took him in the front of the group, set us all at ease, and then they told him he was the dumbest butthead he ever knew. He didn't have the smarts to get out of the way of a car. It just went on and on. And Mr. Olson goes, "Well, sir, if it took you 2 weeks to figure that out, you're not too smart yourself." I've always loved that story. Myself, I believe that in the Army you grow up a lot. You see a lot. You know a lot. You keep your mouth shut about a lot. And you can talk about a few things. About it, I'm sure thank you all coming because I'm very honored to be here.
Mr. Benson, on behalf of the United States and the Quilts of Valor Foundation, thank you for your service. Okay, our next award is to Kenneth Dorr, also known as Kenny from Henninger. He was nominated by his son Larry, and his wrapping, it will be by his wife Veda and his son Larry. If you could come forward. And they are both residents of the Henninger the Care Center. I want to thank them for bringing them here. Okay, Kenneth is a United States Army veteran, having served during the Korean conflict. He served in the National Guard from 1946 to 1950, and then the United States Army from 1954 to 1956. In 1946, Kenny was a charter member of the Henninger National Guard. That year, the unit built the armory in Henninger. You know it today as the shop that stands at the east end of the museum in town. The unit then moved to Mott to build a similar building there. During the 4 years in the National Guard, Kenny was married and had a farm just west of Lodgepole, South Dakota. In 1954, during the Korean conflict, he enlisted in the Army and spent time in Philadelphia before being deployed to Germany, where his unit worked as a big infantry division. Kenny was discharged from the Army in 1956, came home to his wife Veda and daughter Barbara, and continued farming and ranching life. They raised 6 children who, to this day, are very proud of the time their dad has served. Kenneth and Veda recently celebrated their 72nd wedding anniversary, and I think their 73rd is coming up here in September. And they both, as I had indicated, reside at the Western Horizons Care Center here in Henninger. And I guess I should also mention that his highest rank at discharge was E6. Is there anything that the family or anybody would like to say before we proceed? Okay, thank you. Did you want to say something, Kenny?
I'd just like to say that I was one of the charter members of the National Guard.
Thank you. Mr. Dorr, on behalf of the United States and the Quilts of Valor, thank you for your service. Okay, our next award, and he's just going to remain seated where he's at, is to Michael John Ellison. He's also a resident of the Western Horizons Care Center here in Henninger. He was nominated by his daughter Jill Carter from Bismarck, and his wrapping will be done by Jill and daughter Kristen. Mike is a Korean, we'll get the quilt opened up. We're going to have him hold the quilt in the front so that you can see it, and then we'll do the wrapping where he's at. What? Oh, sister. So they're Mike? Okay, Mike is a Korean War veteran and a Cold War veteran era. He served in the United States Air Force from June 8th of 1954 to February 11th of 1958. He was stationed in Iwo Jima. His primary duty was an accounting specialist, and his highest rank, I'm A1C private, not sure about that. Okay. Awards he's received: the National Defense Service Medal, the Good Conduct Medal, which was with the Headquarters 825th Air Base Group. Is there anything that you would like to say before you wrap her down? Okay. Do you want to say anything? Want to say anything?
I joined the Air Force after 1954. Spent 4 years.
Okay, never hear that he enjoyed every minute of his service. Thank you. Mr. Ellison, on behalf of the United States and the Quilts of Valor, thank you for your service. Okay, now part of our program is the Vietnam War Commemoration Program has asked all of the Quilts of Valor groups to assist them in distributing to all Vietnam War veterans the Vietnam War lapel pin. And we also have a pin, it's a family pin. You get one and you give one to whichever family you like. They're discontinuing that particular pin, but they're asking us to help distribute these until 2024, I think it is. Now, some of you may have received one of these pins already, but if you have not, would you please stand? And now, it's anyone that has served. You do not have to be qualified for a Quilt of Valor. If you served from 1955 to 1975, that's considered the Vietnam War era. So if you stayed stateside. So if there's anyone here during that era, you're entitled to one of these pins. So please stand, and our members will get a pin to you, the lapel pin, the family pin, and there's also a handout, a fact sheet that describes the pin. And it's a very beautiful pin. And some have been putting it on their caps. Do we have anyone in the group back here that's in it? I'm sure we do. Yeah. Is there anyone else in the crowd besides these two gentlemen that's in the Vietnam War era? It's a big time for you. Oh, way in the back. Way in the back? Here. Many of the veterans groups, the American Legions and different ones, they have these pins, the VA service officers, many have them, and they're trying to get all the Vietnam War veterans in that era to get one of these pins. It's to say thank you. It's another way to thank you for your service. Something long overdue. Is there anybody in the back that maybe get everyone? I think so. Okay, I think if that's okay, that's it. Is there anybody here that wants to say a few words before we proceed? Because we're starting to gear down. Okay.
I'm Holly Wyman. Most of you know me from around here. My husband, Richard Wyman, was in the Army during the Vietnam War. He did receive a Quilt of Valor, in 2016 from a different group. It was out of South Dakota. I just want you to know that this is very, very dear to my heart to see so many people that I know getting this award today. It is very, very touching for me.
Thank you. I should mention that there are, when we organized 3 years ago, there's a Minot group that organized right about the same time. There are three in the eastern part of the state that have been around for quite a while. There's a brand new one. I think it's by herself. There might be two gals from the St. John area. So there's new groups starting up, which is good. So we can probably start covering some larger areas. Everyone is welcome to stick around. They are serving lunch. The American Legion is hosting lunch, so afterwards, stick around. We have awards this afternoon at 1:30. If you want to stay around for those, you certainly can. And that group's going to start coming in, having lunch together. So share your stories and so forth, and enjoy the lunch. And I'm going to end with some thank yous, and I want to apologize if I miss anyone. I want to thank all of you that nominated these veterans, these veterans and service members. Because without those nominations, these awards would not happen. And I want to thank the American Legion for providing the lunch, allowing us and finding a space for us and so forth. As I said, we're a nonprofit. We do not have the funds to rent a facility, so we really appreciate it when we're able to get these locations for us. Also, thank you to Pastor Lori for the wonderful invocation. And Holly Wyman is going to be leading us at the end here with God Bless America, and also the Honor Guard for posting the colors. And to Sheldon Christensen, John Yonner, Jay Scarborough, some of those, and there's some others too that assisted, and Holly, I think, assisted in making all of the arrangements and helping this to take place. And then to all of our members and non-members who make these quilts, the thank you cards, and everything that we do, that's done to make also these awards happen. And of course, to all of the individuals and businesses, organizations, to allow us to continue with your donations, to continue with the Quilts of Valor, to the mission, to award these veterans and service members who've been touched by war. And some that are often forgotten is one thank you that's not said enough. It's a big thank you to the spouses, the families, the children, members of support of the veterans and service members who support their loved ones while they're serving and after. So thank you to all of you. You need a hand for yourself too. And thank you to our veterans for accepting these quilts. There are times we hear stories where someone wants to nominate veterans and service members and they refuse. It can't be a surprise, but they do not want to be nominated. Some say, I'm not a hero, or I was just a clerk, I was just this or that. And as we say, take the word just out of there. It doesn't matter what you may have fought the front line, you may have not, but it's a team effort. Without the one, all of this would not have happened in your service and so forth. So remember, take that just out, and thank you for accepting those nominations. And as to our service, our members and our veterans, you are all our heroes. We are the United States, home of the free, because of the brave. That's you. Thank you. And again, from our group, the Quilts of Valor of the United States, to all of our men, women in uniform, past and present and future, God bless you and thank you. Now, I'm going to end with a quote, and this one's by Mother Teresa. At the heart of silence is prayer. At the heart of prayer is faith. At the heart of faith is life. At the heart of love is service. Many, not only our service members, but even everywhere in the service and the volunteers and so forth that we do, thank you. Service is very important. Now, on the back of your programs are the lyrics, in case you don't know them, to God Bless America. And if you don't have one, if you share, we have a couple extra here too. But if I could have Holly, she's going to lead us. If you could all stand. And we're going to end with God Bless America. But before we do, let's give all of our veterans and service members a hand. Don't forget to thank all of our veterans and service members.
God bless America, land where I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Okay, I think it's John, Bill, and Gary Yonner. Or do they live west of the east of the river? They're the Johnner.
Are you sure?
Yonner. Well, you're a band of white, you're a fortune. Yeah. Oh, like a spinning wheel, and it's not $100,000 a day, it's a quilt. Maybe we could turn our award into that, we can make it some kind of unit. You gotta earn your quilt. Well, you've already earned it, more than a quilt. Okay, John is a United States Army veteran. He was drafted and served from September 9th, 1966 to June 11th of 1968 during the Vietnam War. He did his basic training in Fort Lewis, Washington, and AIT at Fort Lee, Virginia. He was deployed to Nha Trang, Vietnam, and served 3 months in Delawa Vietnamese training camp. He was trained as a light equipment repair. However, he did very little of that. He did heavy equipment and other things as a generator and refrigerator repair. His highest rank was E-Force Specialist. He's a member of the American Legion and the VFW. Now, in his questionnaire that we sent out, he didn't return any memories, but I think John has some that you want to share?
I'm kind of shy. So I guess my memory is when I got drafted, everything went pretty good. Get on the plane, get over to Vietnam. And I said, well, we're flying over Vietnam, so you look down there. I don't know about this. And anyway, we land. 10,000 things going through your mind. Am I going to make it home? So I just kind of looked up. Am I going to make it? It's up to you. And I guess that's one of the main memories. There's a lot of stories that we tell, but we better not get into it. You said I only got an hour to talk. So anyway, I guess, and you girls, you know, you talk about us dedicated. I think you deserve a big round of applause for what you do.
As all of our members say, and you can ask any one of them, we do not do this for the glory. We do this for you. And some days we're so overwhelmed, but when we have awards such as like today, it's like it is so worth it. That's all we can say, is that we don't do it for the glory, it's for you. So, Mr. Yonner, on behalf of the United States, this great nation, and the Quilts of Valor, thank you for your service. Shrink wrap?
Say cheese, John.
Cheese?
We had one veteran, we asked him, are you using your quilt? He goes, no, it's too pretty, I don't want to use it. And it was summertime, it's too hot. We told him to turn up the air conditioning. He is using it now. Okay, you can sit down. Okay, our next award is to Larry J. Heen. Was it Heen from Hettinger? He was nominated by Art Warner on behalf, and Art has been doing this, he did the paperwork and so forth on behalf of the Hettinger American Legion. Awards need to be done online. They give Art the names and so forth. He does the interviews, he goes online, he does it. So we told Art he needs to be $100 as secretary. Now, assisting in Larry's wrapping is his wife Karen and sister Connie. Now, this is another one of these names. I came from the other side of the river, and we call it Heine. It's he, but we think of Heine. Okay, Larry is the United States. Oh, we have a quilt? Oh, yeah. Larry's a United States Army veteran. He served 2 years, from 1969 to 1971. He was 1 year in Vietnam, from June of 69 to June of 1970.
It's upside down. You gotta turn it.
This is a directional quilt.
No, it's
Anyhow, Larry's primary duty location was Vietnam, and his duty was a rifleman in the infantry unit. His highest rank was E5. A memory he shared is, he says, I want to forget about my experiences in Vietnam as well as my treatment coming home. He's a member of the American Legion. Larry, is there anything that you would like to say or share? Okay, you are welcome. Mr. Heen, on behalf of the United States and the Quilts of Valor, thank you for your service. Okay, you just say one? Okay, right, so. Okay, our next award is, what's that?
on to the next one.
Go to Charles Ahmed.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. Tell me when I can do that next one. All right. Okay, we're going to go a little bit out of order. The next one is to Charles Joseph Ahmed from Hettinger, and he was nominated Art Warner for the Hettinger American Legion. Assisting in his wrapping is Carly Eckert, his daughter, and grandson Hudson Eckert. Okay, Charles is a United States Army veteran. He served 2 years from July of 1968 to February of 1970. His unit had orders for Vietnam, which were changed at the last minute, and he was deployed to South Korea instead. His primary duty was 13B-40 in artillery. He was a section chief assigned to an artillery unit in a 105 howitzer. His highest rank was E5 sergeant. Did I pronounce it right? Howitzer? Howitzer. Okay. Charles graduated from Advanced Combat Training Academy as an engine scout in Camp Sitman, South Korea. He was also an honor guard at the 7th Battalion, 17th Artillery in South Korea. Charles saw or was in South Korea when the 82nd United States, now I think he's going to have to explain this, but It was the, are you familiar with the USS Pablo? We were in South Korea when, was it when the men were released? Or you saw them? Okay, so I'm going to try to, and he's going to correct me if I get this wrong. He happened to be in South Korea, the 82nd United States, 82 United States sailors and 1 deceased who were crew members of the USS Pueblo were taken captive by North Korea, where they were released at then. A bit of history about the ship, the incident was on January 23rd, 1968, the small U.S. Navy spy ship was seized at sea by the North Korean forces. 1 crew member had died and 82 were prisoners and were released in December 1968 after spending 11 months in North Korea in captivity. The Pebble was still commissioned as an active ship in the U.S. Navy, but it's still being held by North Korea, along with 10 encryption machines and thousands of top secret documents seized from the ship. It is moored in Taedong River in Pyongyang, I'm not sure if that's pronounced right, and is on display as part of North Korea's Victorious War Museum. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but that was a spy ship which they captured. And I think, I should go on. Charles is a member of the American Legion Post 115. And I think, as you had said, I think the North Koreans said it was they were still in international waters, but actually the North Korean captured them or something. You know, but I'm going to let him say a few words, and then I'll.
Okay, the USS Pepwell was not in their waters; they were international waters. North Koreans claimed they were the captured the ship. I was over in Korea when they released them on December 23rd, 1968, and 82 walked across the bridge and loaded up on helicopters, which flew over the DMZ, which I and my fellow soldiers were. We were informed that they were going to be let go that day. And they flew over in helicopters, and they swooped over our area, and they waved, and we waved back to them. So it was quite a moment at that time.
Thank you. Yeah, if you do some Google searching, after you told me the story, I did some searching last night, and a very interesting story. And all of the men were hospitalized and so forth because they were not treated well, and they were depressed and so forth. So very interesting. But Mr. Almond, on behalf of the United States and the Quilts of Valor Foundation, thank you for your service. Okay, so our next award, now we'll get back on track, is Andrew Mack from Mont. He was nominated by Pearl Reichman and Gloria Payne, our member. He is being wrapped by his sons, Corey and Andrew J. If you could all come forward. Now, I gotta apologize for this quilt. There's a quilt that the glorious group from Elgin, the Bits and Pieces, had made, and somehow, I'm hoping it wasn't awarded, but it was pulled aside, because we do that. If there's quilts made for someone special, we do pull them aside. Well, we've got about 100 of them. At one point, our group was short of quilts and we had to borrow when we went to Lebanon, South Dakota. Our group right now, because of our wonderful members and non-members, we have about 100 on inventory. I'm hoping that that quilt is mixed in there, but this is not the quilt that they had made for them. I'm hoping that I can still, in the inventory, find it. If that's the case, we'll pull off this label and put on a different label, but I'll have to apologize about that. Okay, Andrew, he is a United States Army veteran who served from 1957 to 1959 during the Cold War. He served at Fort Riley, Kansas, and Germany. His primary duty was a mechanic. His highest rank was Private First Class E3. Awards he received as the Good Conduct and the Sharpshooter. And a memory he shared was he recalls his basic training and having to load up and go to Vietnam when his orders were canceled. Is there anything that you would like to share or say, Mr. Martin? Would you like to say anything or share anything with the group? to share a story or anything?
No.
Okay. Mr. Mack, on behalf of the United States and the Quilts of Valor Foundation, thank you for your service. Okay, I do have to ask, is that his cap from the service? Yes. And I'm guessing he's tiny enough that he probably fits in his uniform. And I want to thank you for coming from Mott over to here, because that is the only nomination that we've had from Mott, so it's wonderful that he's able to do this with the group. Okay, our next award is Melvin, or Mel Eggebol from Hettinger. He was nominated by Art on behalf of the American Legion here in Hettinger. He is going to be wrapped by his wife Mary and his grandsons Bowden Hasbrock and Riley Hasbrock and granddaughter Olivia Hasbrock. If you could all come forward. This guy's got it down. Okay, Mel served 4 years in the United States Air Force from December of 1971 to December of 1975, and his highest rank was Sergeant E5. He was stationed at Minot Air Force Base, Tyndall Air Force Base, Florida, Hamilton Air Force Base, California. He had various duty overseas assignments, one being Germany. His primary duty was aerospace ground equipment repairman. He served with fighter squadrons performing specialized repair work. He was called to various bases around the globe as they needed his specialized work for repairs. He's a member of the American Legion, and a memory he shared was, Mel enjoyed his service experience. He requested training in another field as a condition to re-enlist, but he was denied due to his critical nature of his work. Getting out of the service and starting over in civilian life was one of the hardest things he had ever had to do. Military experience for him, he says, was wonderful. Mel, is there anything you would like to share or say? Okay, you are welcome. Mr. Eggebol, on behalf of the United States, this great nation, and the Quilts of Valor Foundation, thank you for your service. Okay, the next one is Nathan Nash from Hettinger. I'm glad, is he here? I think he must be. He was concerned whether or not he'd make it because, because he said over-the-road truck driver, and he wasn't sure where he would be, but he was posted the colors today. He is from Hettinger, and he was nominated by Jay Scarborough from Hettinger, and he said Nathan is a very deserving member or veteran for Quilt of Valor. He is being wrapped by a friend, Tara Har, and one of our members. He looks like the kind of truck driver you don't want to mess with.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Nathan is a United States Army veteran. He served now, I don't know if I got this right, during Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom? Okay. He served 7 years, 3 months, from February of 1999 to May of 2006. He did his basic training at AIT at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and he was released and changed his duties and jobs, so he did additional training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. His primary duty was 63S heavy wheel mechanic and 88M truck driver. He did 2 appointments to Iraq. He said, being a North Dakota boy, he was very fortunate to serve in Miesau, Germany. I think it's you that said it's one of the most beautiful parts of the country. His highest rank was E4 Specialist. He's a member of the American Legion and a lifetime member of the VFW. Nathan, is there anything you would like to share, any stories? Oh, he's got it. You're a chuckler.
You're going to talk around.
Okay, go for it.
Everybody in the room pretty much knows who I am. I know half one of you guys. You guys more or less raised the village Indian. You guys made it possible for me to follow in your steps. And I thank you.
Mr. Nash, on behalf of the United States and the Missouri River Quilts of Valor, thank you for your service. Are we wrapping or folding?
This poor lady is like, oh, sit together.
Oh, no, we need to do your salary. Okay, the last two, they're brothers. The first one we are going to award is Willie T. Frank, also known as Willie, from Henninger. He was nominated by Valerie Mueller. He is being wrapped by his sons Sean and Jeff Frank. If you could come forward. Okay, Willie is a United States Army War veteran. He served 2 years from April 1965 to May of 1967. His primary duty station was Chu Chi, Vietnam. His primary duty was wheel vehicle mechanic, and he was a specialist E4. Awards he received are the National Defense Service Medal, the Vietnam Service Medal, and the Vietnam Campaign Medal. He is a member of the American Legion. Willie, is there anything that you would like to share? Would like to say?
Well, I just want to thank you, Arlene, and the board out was involved and greatly ahead.
Well, thank you for inviting us and being nominated. Mr. Frank, on behalf of the United States and the Quilts of Valor Foundation, thank you for your service. Okay, our last award, last but not least, is Aaron Frank, and he's from Dickinson. He was nominated by Art Warner on behalf of the American Legion, and he wanted to be awarded with his brother, so he came to Dickinson, to Henninger from Dickinson. He is going to be wrapped by his nephews, Jeff and Sean. Aaron, like his brother, was a United States Army veteran. He served 1.5 years from October of 1970 to April of 72. He served in Vietnam from August of 71 to April of 72. After that, he was discharged. His primary duty location was Vietnam. His primary duty was a parts specialist. Aaron was part of a maintenance support unit where he did paperwork and work completed on generators, jeeps, and 5-ton trucks. His highest rank was Specialist E4. He has been awarded the Bronze Star, National Defense Service Medal, and the Vietnam Service Medal. The highlight of his military career was coming home. I just did my job and was glad to get out there. He was told not to wear his uniform when he returned home, but fortunately, he had no difficulty. Aaron, is there anything you would like to say or share? He's going to pass. Mr. Frank, on behalf of the United States and the Quilts of Valor, thank you for your service. Okay, so the next part of our program, we are going to present the Vietnam War lapel pin. Now, there were some here this morning, but the Vietnam War Commemoration Program has asked the Quilts of Valor Foundation groups to assist them in awarding, presenting the Vietnam lapel pin to all Vietnam War veterans. You do not have to be eligible for a Quilt of Valor. If you served in the service, any branch, any time, from 1955 to 1975, you are entitled to one of these pins. Now, if there's anyone here, because I know the big group here is the Vietnam War veterans, but if there's anyone else in the audience that has served during that era, please stand and our members will come to you and present you with one of the pins. In addition, there's also a family pin that you get one pin to select a family member that you wish to give it to. Also, you're going to get the lapel fact sheet, and it describes the pin. Now, I've got to apologize. This morning when we did these awards, or presented these, they had mailed a packet of these forms, and I opened the envelope, didn't even look at the envelope until we're pulling them out, and I'm like, this is the wrong sheet. So those this morning, we've got the wrong fact sheet. If we have extras when we're done with this group, if anybody is still here, we're going to switch it out. We might be short. I'm going to mail some to Legion members, someone, so we can get those switched out. Or I know the veterans that were awarded quilts, I can mail the one in the mail, but I know there were some people in the audience that got a pin, and I don't know who they are. But if we got extras, we're going to switch those out. So if you could go ahead and all those of you presented the Vietnam lapel pin. So is there anyone in the audience that is entitled, that served during 55 to 75, that hasn't received a pin? Some have been putting it on their cap. And you did not have to serve in Vietnam. You could have stayed stateside. It doesn't matter what branch of the military. If you served during those years, you're considered the Vietnam.
His birthday is March 24th. He died in 22. He died 2 days before his birthday. 2 weeks before our 50th wedding anniversary. 1 week before our celebration of our 50th. And a few days from going on the honor flight to Washington, D.C. I made a quilt of honor for Kenny Dorr. the one that hangs in his room. It looks just like the one Mr. Matthew has. My dad was a U.S. Marine. He served in Pearl Harbor after the bombing. His job was to take the dog tags off the dead on the beaches. He said, "You'll never, ever forget that smell. It was awful." He was a mechanic over there. My heart's beating so fast, I don't know if I can finish this, but you don't know what kind of honor this is to get these quilts. And they've been put together with loving hands, and I know what it's like. Thank you, Holly.
Okay, a couple we're going to get here ending down soon. Again, a reminder, if you want pictures, if we don't have an email address for you, if you have a friend or family, give us the email and we'll get them passed on that way. Also, if you have any questions on how to nominate, what the criteria are and so forth, see any one of our members, we'll be glad to help you. As we said, a nomination cannot be a surprise. You must be notified of it, and they are done online. And I'm going to end with some thank yous, and I apologize if I miss anyone, but thank you to everyone that nominated these veterans, because without those nominations, these awards would not happen. And also, thank you to the American Legion for allowing us to setting up this facility. It was a wonderful facility. The lunch that was served for the group this morning and this afternoon and so forth.